The darkness of space near Neptune lit up with thousands of bright flashes. Ships appeared from nowhere, tearing through the fabric of reality as they dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The vessels were enormous, each one stretching kilometers in length. Their hulls gleamed with dark metal, covered in weapons and armor plating that had seen countless battles across the galaxy. Fleet Commander Thexcal stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest. His 4 eyes scanned the tactical displays with satisfaction. Behind him, his officers worked at their stations, coordinating the arrival of 847 warships. This was the largest fleet the Zalthorn Imperium had ever assembled. It was more than enough to crush the primitive species that called this system home. Thexcal's skin rippled with the purple shade that indicated pleasure among his kind. He touched the data tablet in his clawed hand, reviewing the intelligence reports one more time. The species here called themselves humans. They had only been traveling in space for 200 years. In galactic terms, they were infants. Babies playing with fire, the reports were clear. Humans had no energy shields. Their ships relied on thick metal armor that any plasma weapon could melt through in seconds. They used primitive kinetic weapons, hurling metal projectiles through space. Some of their weapons were nuclear. But even those were outdated technology. The Zalthorn had conquered species far more advanced than this. Status report, Thexcal commanded, his voice carrying the harmonic tones of his language through the bridge's translation system. All ships have arrived successfully. Commander, his second officer replied. Formation is complete. All weapon systems are charged and ready. Shield networks are at full strength. Thexcal nodded. This would be the Imperium's 48th conquered system. 47 worlds already paid tribute to the Zalthorn throne. Their resources fed the Empire. Their people served as labor. This was the natural order of the galaxy. The strong dominated the weak. Begin the approach to the third planet, Thexcal ordered. Standard invasion protocol. We will broadcast our demands when we reach the outer boundaries of their habitation zone. The massive fleet began to move, their engines burning bright blue as they accelerated toward the inner solar system. Thexcal allowed himself a moment of reflection. This conquest would secure his legacy. The resources of the system would make him wealthy beyond measure. Perhaps he would even earn a seat on the High Council. A warning alarm sounded softly on the bridge. The sensor officer looked up from his station, his expression puzzled. Commander, we have a single contact. A small vessel approaching our position. Thexcal felt amusement ripple through his body. One ship? Display it. The main viewing screen changed, showing a small human vessel. It was tiny compared to the Zalthorn warships, perhaps only 300 meters long. It had a cylindrical design with various modules attached. Primitive rocket engines glowed at its rear. The vessel looked like something a child might build from scrap metal. They are hailing us, Commander, the communications officer announced. Put it through, Thexcal said. He wanted to hear what these humans would say. Would they beg? Would they try to negotiate? Perhaps they would offer immediate surrender. That would save everyone time. The screen showed a human female in a dark blue uniform. She had brown skin and black hair pulled back from her face. Her dark eyes stared directly into the camera with an expression that Thexcal found difficult to read. There was no fear in those eyes. No desperation. Just calm certainty. I am Captain Sarah Chen of the United Human Space Forces frigate Undaunted, the woman said. Her voice was steady and clear. You have entered human-controlled space without authorization. This is a violation of our territorial boundaries. Thexcal's officers looked at each other in confusion. The sensor officer made a sound that might have been a laugh. Captain Chen continued speaking. You are hereby ordered to reverse course and depart this system immediately. You have 72 hours to comply with this directive. This is your only warning. Any hostile action or failure to depart within the specified time frame will be met with lethal force. The transmission ended. The human captain's face disappeared from the screen, replaced by the view of her small ship. The vessel hung in space, its running lights blinking steadily as if waiting for a response. For a moment, the bridge was silent. Then Thexcal began to laugh. It started as a low rumble in his chest and grew into a full bellowing sound. His officers joined in, their laughter filling the command center. Did she just threaten us? The weapons officer managed to say between fits of laughter. One tiny ship against the might of the Imperium? The audacity, Thexcal said, wiping moisture from his primary eyes. I almost admire it. Such boldness from such a weak species. The tactical officer brought up a comparison display. The human frigate appeared next to a scaled image of just one Zolthorn dreadnought. The warship was 20 times larger. Its weapons could reduce that frigate to atoms in seconds. Should we destroy it, Commander? The weapons officer asked. We could vaporize that insulting little ship and send a message to the rest of their species. Thexcal considered this. No, he decided. Let them watch. Let them see our fleet approach their world. Let them understand the futility of resistance. When we reach their planet, they will remember this moment. They will remember that their bravery meant nothing. And the 72-hour warning? Another officer asked. Ignore it, Thexcal said dismissively. Continue on course. Prepare the standard surrender demand. We will broadcast it when we are close enough that every human in this system can hear it. The fleet continued its burn toward Earth. The small human frigate remained where it was for several minutes, then slowly turned and accelerated away, heading back toward the inner system. It moved at a leisurely pace as if it had all the time in the world. Thexcal watched it go. Something about the encounter bothered him, though he could not identify what. The human captain had shown no fear, no desperation. She had delivered her warning as if she were commenting on the weather. As if the appearance of the largest invasion fleet in Zolthorn history was merely a minor inconvenience. He shook off the feeling. These humans simply did not understand what they faced. They would learn. Every species learned eventually. The Imperium had conquered worlds with far more advanced technology. These primitive humans would be no different. Estimated time to Earth? Thexcal asked. 68 hours at current acceleration, Commander. Thexcal settled into his command chair. Excellent. Well within their ridiculous deadline. I want all fleet captains prepared for immediate action. When we arrive, there will be no negotiations. We will demonstrate our power, and they will surrender. This will be the easiest conquest in Imperium history. The bridge crew returned to their duties with renewed confidence. The massive fleet continued its journey toward the blue and green planet ahead. In the distance, the tiny human frigate had become just another point of light among the stars. Behind them, Neptune continued its slow orbit, indifferent to the drama unfolding in its cosmic neighborhood. The gas giant had witnessed billions of years of history. It would witness billions more. Whether humans or Zolthorn controlled this system, one side would learn an important lesson. Thexcal allowed himself one final moment of satisfaction before beginning the detailed planning for the invasion. He thought about the human captain's words. 72 hours. A final warning. Lethal force. Empty threats from a dying civilization. In 3 days, the humans would kneel before the Imperium, just like every other species that had stood in their way. The Zolthorn had never failed to conquer a world they set their sights on. This would be no different. The fleet pressed forward through the cold darkness of space, confident in their overwhelming superiority. Behind them, the warning had been delivered and dismissed. Ahead of them, Earth waited in silence. The countdown had begun. 24 hours had passed since the Zolthorn fleet entered the solar system. Thexcal stood before the main communications array, preparing to deliver the Imperium's standard ultimatum. His image would be broadcast to every human communication device in the system. Every screen, every radio, every data terminal would carry his message. Begin transmission, he commanded. The signal went out across space at light speed. On Earth, Mars, the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, and every human station and ship, the message appeared. Thexcal's image filled screens, his 4 eyes staring out at billions of humans. People of Earth, he began. His voice translated into multiple human languages simultaneously. I am Fleet Commander Thexcal of the Zolthorn Imperium. Your system is now under our control. You have 48 hours to transmit your unconditional surrender. Your ships will be decommissioned. Your military forces will lay down their weapons. Your governments will dissolve and accept Imperium administration. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. Resistance is futile. We have conquered 47 star systems. Your primitive technology cannot stand against us. Surrender, and your people will be treated fairly. Resist, and your cities will burn. You have 48 hours. Choose wisely. The transmission ended. Thexcal returned to his command chair, satisfied. Now the humans would panic. Their leaders would argue. Some would want to fight, others would want to surrender. The division would weaken them further. By the time his fleet reached Earth, they would be ready to accept defeat. On Earth, in a deep underground facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, the Human Defense Council gathered. The room was circular, with screens displaying data from across the solar system. 50 people sat around the central table, representing every nation and colony in human space. General Patricia Okonkwo, Supreme Commander of United Human Space Forces, stood at the head of the table. She was 70 years old, with gray hair and dark skin lined with age. Her uniform carried medals from conflicts that the public knew nothing about. She looked around the table at the assembled leaders. "The Zalthorn have issued their ultimatum," she said calmly. "We have 48 hours according to their timeline. We gave them 72 hours according to ours." The countdown continues. President Chen of the Earth Coalition spoke up. "General, are we certain about this course of action?" 847 warships. Our intelligence says each one is more powerful than anything we've shown publicly. General Okonkwo smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "Mr. President, they only know what we've shown them, what we've allowed them to see." She touched a control and the screens around the room changed. Images appeared showing human history, but not the history that was taught in schools. These images told a different story. 150 years ago, we made first contact with the Terrellians, General Okonkwo said. They were peaceful, kind. They warned us about the galaxy we'd entered. They told us the truth that no one wants to hear. Most spacefaring species are predators. War is constant. Young civilizations are prey. More images appeared. Destroyed worlds. Enslaved populations. Species that had been wiped out by more powerful neighbors. We made a decision that day, the general continued. We would prepare. We would develop. We would build. But we would do it in secret. We would let the galaxy think we were weak, primitive, easy prey. She touched another control. New images filled the screens and several council members gasped. They showed weapons, ships, technologies that should not exist. For 150 years we have been preparing for this moment, General Okonkwo said. Every resource we could spare went into defense. Every scientific advancement was weaponized. Every colony was built with dual purpose, mining operation and fortress, research station and weapons platform, civilian habitat and military stronghold. Admiral Chen spoke from his position at the table. He was Captain Sarah Chen's father, commander of the Pacific Fleet. The Zalthorn's intelligence is accurate for what we've shown them. They've seen our public ships, our civilian technology, our commercial ventures. They have no idea what we've been building in the shadows. On the screens, images cycled through humanity's secret arsenal, ships unlike anything the Zalthorn had encountered, weapons platforms hidden across the solar system, defense networks that had taken decades to construct, technologies that pushed the boundaries of physics itself. Mars isn't a colony, General Okonkwo explained. It's a fortress. Every habitat dome conceals weapons batteries. Every canyon holds railgun emplacements. The whole planet is one massive defensive installation. The Zalthorn sensors detected high-energy readings. They thought it was civilian infrastructure. Power plants for cities. Life support for colonists, she smiled again. They were half right. It is infrastructure. But not for civilians. 2,000 weapons platforms, all networked, all charged and ready. Each one capable of firing 12-ton tungsten rods at 5% of light speed. Another council member spoke up. And Earth? Earth has 6 layers of defensive networks, Admiral Chen replied. Satellites they think are for communications and weather monitoring. Stations they think are for research. Every one of them is armed. Plasma cannons, missile swarms, laser arrays. Energy weapons the Zalthorn have never seen because we invented them ourselves. General Okonkwo continued the briefing. Jupiter's moon Europa. They think it's a water mining operation. It's a submarine fleet base. Under the ice, we have 300 attack submarines capable of launching into space. Saturn's moon Titan. They think it's a research station studying the atmosphere. It's a chemical weapons production facility and a launch site for strategic bombers. The images kept coming. The asteroid belt, filled with 100,000 automated hunter-killer drones. Luna's far side hollowed out and converted into a massive shipyard. 300 warships built in secret, using designs and technologies the galaxy had never encountered. How? President Chen asked. How did we keep this secret? We learned from history, General Okonkwo said. We studied every intelligence failure, every successful deception, every time an underdog defeated a superior force through preparation and misdirection. We created shell companies, fake civilian projects, public programs that had secret military applications. We recruited the best minds from every nation and gave them unlimited resources. And we waited. The Zalthorn scans our communications, Admiral Chen added. They're listening right now. So we feed them what they expect to hear. Panic, confusion, calls for evacuation, preparation to surrender. Let them think they've won before the battle even starts. On the screens, intercepted Zalthorn communications played. Their commanders were confident. Certain of victory, they had already begun dividing the spoils of a war they hadn't yet fought. They gave themselves 48 hours, General Okonkwo said. We gave them 72. The deadline represents their last chance to leave peacefully. Every minute they remain, they come closer to Earth, closer to our weapons, deeper into our trap. She looked around the table at each council member in turn. Make no mistake about what's coming. When that deadline expires, we will show the galaxy who we really are. The Zalthorn think they're invading a primitive world. They're about to learn they've entered a killing field. The council chamber fell silent. On the screens, the Zalthorn fleet continued its journey toward Earth. They were passing Mars now, their sensors scanning the red planet. They detected the colonies, the power signatures, the energy readings. Their analysis confirmed what they believed, a developing civilization, barely capable of interplanetary travel. They had no idea they were flying past weapons that could crack their ships open like eggs. 24 hours remain on our deadline, General Okonkwo announced. All forces are to continue charging cycles. All personnel are to maintain communications protocols. Let the Zalthorn hear what they expect. Let them see what they want to see. She straightened, her voice taking on a harder edge. When the deadline expires, every system goes active simultaneously. No warning shots, no second chances. They were given their warning. They were given time to leave. They chose to ignore it. The consequences are on them. The council members nodded. Some looked grim. Others looked determined. All understood the magnitude of what was about to happen. Across the solar system, human colonies went dark. Communication ceased. The Zalthorn interpreted this as fear. Populations hiding in bunkers. Governments preparing to surrender. They saw what they expected to see. They did not see the weapons powering up. The ships launching from hidden bays. The defense networks aligning their targeting systems. The trap closing around them with every kilometer they traveled. Captain Sarah Chen sat in her quarters aboard the Undaunted, reviewing the countdown timer. 24 hours. She thought about the Zalthorn commander who had laughed at her warning. She wondered if he was still laughing. Soon he would understand. They all would. Humanity had been given a warning 150 years ago. They had listened. They had learned. They had prepared. Now it was humanity's turn to teach a lesson. And the Zalthorn were about to become students in a very harsh school. 1 hour remained on the human deadline. The Zalthorn fleet had crossed Mars orbit, moving steadily toward Earth. Thexkal studied the tactical displays with growing confidence. The red planet slid past on the view screens, looking peaceful and quiet in the darkness of space. Sir, Mars appears to be abandoned, his sensor officer reported. We're detecting minimal life signs. The human colonies have been evacuated. Thexkal nodded. They're hiding in their bunkers on Earth, waiting for the inevitable. Continue on course. Maintain formation. I want every ship ready for orbital bombardment when we arrive. What Thexkal didn't know was that Mars had never been truly colonized in the way he understood. The domes his sensors detected weren't homes. They were blast shields. The power signatures weren't civilian infrastructure. They were weapons batteries that had been charging for 72 hours straight. The whole planet had been designed for one purpose: to defend humanity from exactly this kind of threat. Deep inside Mars, in tunnels carved through ancient rock, thousands of human soldiers waited at their stations. Major James Rodriguez stood in the central command bunker, 3 kilometers below the surface. Above him, 2,000 railgun platforms lay dormant. Their targeting computers locked onto the Zalthorn fleet. Every weapon was charged. Every system was ready. They just needed the order to fire. All stations report ready, his second-in-command said. We have firing solutions on all 847 targets. Waiting for authorization. Major Rodriguez watched the countdown clock. 59 minutes. 58 minutes. 57 minutes. He thought about the Zalthorn commanders, so confident in their superiority, so certain of their victory. They had no idea they were flying through a shooting gallery. On the Eternal Conquest, Thexcal's communications officer suddenly looked up from his station. "Commander, we're receiving another transmission from the humans." "Put it through," Thexcal said. He expected begging, perhaps an offer of partial surrender. Some kind of negotiation that would make him look merciful to his superiors. Captain Sarah Chen appeared on the screen again. She sat in the command chair of the Undaunted, her expression as calm as it had been during the first transmission. Behind her bridge crew worked quietly at their stations. "Commander Thexcal," she began.
48 hours have passed since you entered our space.
"You now have 24 hours remaining on your deadline to depart. This is your second warning. Reverse course immediately and leave this system. This is your last opportunity to avoid conflict." She leaned forward slightly, her dark eyes intense. "You believe you hold the advantage. You believe your fleet is unstoppable. You believe we are primitive and weak. These beliefs are incorrect. You are making a fatal mistake. Leave now while you still can." The transmission ended. For a moment, silence filled the bridge of the Eternal Conquest. Then Thexcal began to laugh, though this time it sounded forced. "She's bluffing," he said, "trying to buy time, trying to make us doubt ourselves." His weapons officer wasn't laughing. "Commander, should we reconsider?" "Perhaps we should wait." "Gather more intelligence?" "Absolutely not," Thexcal snapped. "We have already committed to this action. To retreat now would be humiliation. The Imperium does not retreat from primitives." He stood from his command chair, his posture aggressive. Besides, what could they possibly do? "We've seen their technology. We know their capabilities. This is psychological warfare, nothing more." But his science officer was studying the sensor displays with a worried expression. "Commander, I'm detecting unusual energy signatures throughout the system. Very high readings. I initially attributed them to civilian power generation, but the patterns are wrong. The distribution is wrong. It's almost as if what?" Thexcal demanded. "As if the entire system is one massive weapons platform," the science officer said quietly. "Sir, I recommend we stop and reassess. Something is not right here." Thexcal felt a flash of anger. His officers were doubting him, doubting the mission. "Your recommendation is noted and denied. We continue on course." "That's an order." The fleet pressed onward. Earth grew larger in their view screens, a beautiful blue and green marble hanging in the black void. Thexcal stared at it, imagining the resources it contained, the wealth it would bring him, the prestige of its conquest. On Earth, in the Lunar Command Center hidden beneath the moon's surface, General Patricia Okonkwo watched the same tactical displays that Thexcal was viewing. But her displays showed information the Zalthorn could not see. The true locations of human forces, the real capabilities of human weapons, the actual state of readiness across the solar system. "Status of all defensive networks?" she asked. "Mars Defense Network, fully charged and ready. Earth Defense Grid, all 6 layers active and locked on. Asteroid Belt Hunter killers deployed and awaiting orders. Luna Shipyard, all vessels have launched and are in position. Jupiter and Saturn stations ready to deploy on your command." General Okonkwo nodded. "And our ships?" Admiral Chen responded from his station. 300 vessels are in position, Commander. Stealth systems active. The Zalthorn have no idea we're here. They still think we only have a few dozen primitive craft. 30 minutes to deadline," someone announced. General Okonkwo touched her communication panel. "This is General Okonkwo to all human forces across the Sol system. 30 minutes remain. Hold your positions. Hold your fire. Let them come. Let them get close. When the deadline expires, you will receive one word. Execute. That will be your authorization to engage. Make every shot count. Show them why they should have listened to our warnings." Across the solar system, hundreds of thousands of human military personnel heard her words. On Mars, in the asteroid belt orbiting Earth, hiding in the moons of the outer planets. All of them waited. All of them watched the countdown. 15 minutes remained. The Zalthorn fleet was now close enough that Earth filled their forward view screens. Thexcal could see the continents, the oceans, the clouds swirling through the atmosphere. It was beautiful. It would be his. "Sir, I'm detecting unusual movement," the sensor officer said urgently. "Multiple objects around Luna are changing position. Energy signatures are spiking across the system. Commander, I strongly advise—" "Silence," Thexcal ordered. "You're seeing civilian traffic. Evacuation ships. Nothing more." But his hands gripped the arms of his command chair tightly. Something felt wrong. That human captain's eyes kept appearing in his mind. Her absolute confidence. Her complete lack of fear. What did she know that he didn't? 10 minutes remained. On Luna, Captain Sarah Chen sat aboard the Undaunted, now docked at the main military station. She wasn't on her small frigate anymore. That ship had been for show. For the warning. Now she sat in the command chair of the UHSF Retribution, a warship that made the Undaunted look like a child's toy. The Retribution was 5 kilometers long, bristling with weapons that the Zalthorn had never encountered. Weapons that shouldn't exist according to the laws of physics the Zalthorn understood. All systems ready, Captain, her new tactical officer reported. Target package locked in. Awaiting execution order. Sarah Chen watched the countdown. 5 minutes. 4 minutes. 3 minutes. On the Eternal Conquest, Thexkal's science officer was frantically running calculations. Commander, the energy readings are off the scale. These aren't civilian systems. These are weapons. High-powered weapons. Thousands of them. Sir, we need to reverse course immediately. Thexkal stared at his displays. For the first time, doubt crept into his mind. The entire system was lighting up with energy signatures. How had they missed this? How had their intelligence been so wrong? Sir, your orders? His second officer asked. 1 minute remained. Thexkal opened his mouth to give the order to retreat. Pride warred with survival instinct. His reputation against his life. The prestige of conquest against the possibility of defeat. Commander, his weapons officer pressed. 30 seconds. 20 seconds. 10 seconds. General Okonkwo's voice went out across every human military channel in the solar system. It was quiet, calm, certain, execute. The Zalthorn fleet was passing through Mars' orbit when the red planet came alive. 2,000 railgun platforms emerged from beneath camouflaged covers. Targeting lasers painted every Zalthorn ship. And then, in perfect synchronization, Mars opened fire. 12-ton tungsten rods launched from the surface at 5% of light speed. They crossed the distance to the Zalthorn fleet in seconds. The rods didn't explode. They didn't need to. At that velocity, they carried more kinetic energy than nuclear weapons. When they hit, they went through Zalthorn's shields like paper and punched through hulls like they weren't even there. The first wave of fire destroyed 17 Zalthorn ships before their crews even knew they were under attack. The second wave launched before the first had finished hitting. Mars had become a cannon, and the Zalthorn fleet was in its sights. On the Eternal Conquest, every alarm in the ship began screaming at once. The bridge lights turned red. Emergency protocols activated automatically. Shields down to 40%. Someone yelled. Hull breaches on deck 7 through 12. Return fire, Thexkal roared. All ships return fire on Mars! But Mars was a planet. The Zalthorn could bombard it, but they couldn't destroy it. And every second they wasted shooting at Mars, more tungsten rods crossed the distance to there. Admiral Webb's expression didn't change. All Zalthorn vessels are ordered to power down weapons and shields immediately. Do not attempt to flee. Do not attempt to fight. Compliance will be monitored. Any ship that fails to comply will be destroyed. You have 60 seconds. On the Eternal Conquest, Thexkal slumped in his command chair. Around him, his bridge crew looked to him for orders. He could see the fear in their eyes. The shock. The disbelief. This wasn't supposed to happen. The Imperium didn't lose. They didn't surrender. They were conquerors. Power down all weapons, he said quietly. Lower shields. Broadcast surrender on all frequencies to the fleet. His weapons officer hesitated. Sir, perhaps we can still fight our way. Look at the displays. Thexkal interrupted, his voice hollow. Look at what surrounds us. We are outgunned, outmaneuvered, outsmarted. If we fight, we die, all of us. Power down the weapons. Across the Zalthorn fleet, ships began to comply. Their weapons went dark. Their shields collapsed. A few captains, too proud or too foolish to accept defeat, tried to make a run for it. They fired their engines at maximum burn, attempting to escape the human forces. The human response was surgical, precise, overwhelming. Laser batteries locked onto the fleeing ships. Plasma cannons charged, the weapons fired, and in 90 seconds every ship that had tried to escape was a drifting hulk, its engines destroyed, its hull breached, its crew either dead or dying. The message was clear. Surrender meant survival. Resistance meant death. 730 Zolthorn ships powered down their weapons and waited. They were surrounded by 300 human warships that should not exist. They were in range of weapons platforms that their intelligence had completely missed. They had walked into a trap so perfectly constructed that they never had a chance. "All Zolthorn vessels prepare to be boarded," Admiral Webb announced. "Human Marines will secure your ships. You will surrender your command codes. You will provide access to all systems. Any resistance will result in your immediate destruction. Captains and senior officers will be transported to human vessels for processing." Thexacal watched as small human craft launched from the surrounding warships. Boarding ships, Marines. They moved with practiced efficiency, approaching his fleet from multiple angles. He noticed that each Zolthorn vessel had at least 3 human warships targeting it at all times. There would be no opportunity for treachery, no chance for a desperate counterattack. The boarding craft attached to the Eternal Conquest with mechanical thuds that echoed through the hull. Minutes later, human Marines entered the bridge. They wore powered armor that made them look larger than life. Their weapons were raised, ready to fire at the slightest provocation. But their discipline was perfect. They didn't shoot, didn't threaten. They simply moved through the bridge with calm professionalism, securing the area. A human officer entered behind them. She was tall, with red hair and green eyes. Her uniform bore the insignia of a commander in the UHSF Marines. "I am Commander Rachel Foster," she said, her voice amplified through her armor's speakers. "Fleet Commander Thexcal, you are now a prisoner of the United Human Space Forces. Your vessel is secured. You will come with me." Thexcal stood slowly. His legs felt weak. He had commanded fleets, conquered worlds, brought entire civilizations to their knees. Now he was being arrested by a species he had dismissed as primitive. The shame burned worse than any weapon. He was escorted from his own bridge through corridors filled with his own crew, all of them watching their commander being led away by humans in powered armor. The walk to the boarding craft felt like walking to his execution. The human vessel he was taken to was unlike anything in Zolthorn design. Where Zolthorn ships were built for intimidation and raw power, this ship felt different, efficient, precise. Every surface served a purpose. There was no wasted space, no decorative elements. This was a machine built by people who understood war at a fundamental level. He was brought to a conference room. Admiral Webb waited there along with several other human officers. Thexcal was directed to sit. The humans sat across from him, their expressions neutral. "Commander Thexacal," Admiral Webb began, "let's discuss what happens next. But first, let's discuss what already happened. I think you deserve to understand exactly how badly you miscalculated." He touched a control, and holographic displays appeared above the table. They showed the solar system, with human assets marked in blue and Zolthorn positions marked in red. There were thousands of blue markers. Thexcal felt his stomach turn. 150 years ago, we made first contact with a peaceful species called the Terrellians, Admiral Webb explained. They warned us about the galaxy. They told us that most spacefaring civilizations are predatory. That war is constant, that young species like ours are targets. More displays appeared showing human military development over the decades. Ships, weapons, technologies. We made a choice, Admiral Webb continued. We would prepare. We would develop weapons and defenses that could protect us. But we would do it quietly. We would let the galaxy believe we were weak, primitive, easy prey. Thexcal listened, feeling more foolish with every word. "Everything you knew about us was technically true," Admiral Webb said. "Our public ships do use kinetic weapons. We do lack energy shields on our civilian craft. Our commercial vessels are relatively primitive. But you made a fatal assumption. You assumed that what you could see was all we had. The displays changed, showing weapons platforms hidden across the solar system, railguns on Mars, defense grids around Earth, ship construction facilities inside asteroids and moons. Mars isn't a colony, Admiral Webb explained. It's a fortress. Every dome conceals weapons batteries. Every power plant feeds military systems. We hollowed out sections of the planet and filled them with railguns. 2,000 platforms, each capable of firing projectiles at 5% of light speed. You flew right past them. Thexcal remembered his sensor officer's warnings, the unusual energy signatures, the patterns that didn't make sense for civilian infrastructure. He had dismissed it all. Earth has 6 layers of orbital defense, Admiral Webb continued. Platforms you thought were communication satellites. Stations you thought were for research. All of them armed. All of them networked. You could have bombarded Earth for years and never gotten through. More displays appeared. The asteroid belt contains 100,000 autonomous hunter-killer drones. Each one is armed and capable of independent action. Luna's far side is a shipyard. We built 300 warships there over the course of a century. Ships you never knew existed until they appeared around your fleet. Texcal found his voice. The stealth technology, how? Our sensors are the most advanced in the known galaxy. Are they? Admiral Webb asked. Or are they just the most advanced that you know about? We developed quantum phase stealth systems 30 years ago. Your sensors were scanning for energy emissions we stopped producing decades ago. You were looking for the wrong signatures. A human scientist joined the conversation. She was an older woman with gray hair and kind eyes that somehow made the revelation worse. We studied every species the Tyrellians told us about. Every technology, every weapon, every tactic. Then we developed counters. We didn't just match galactic technology. We surpassed it, we had to. Our survival depended on it. The weapons that destroyed my ships, Texcal said. The tungsten rods. They hit harder than our best missiles. Kinetic energy increases with the square of velocity, the scientist explained. At 5% of light speed, a 12-ton projectile carries more energy than a nuclear warhead. And unlike missiles, they can't be intercepted by point defense. They're just solid metal moving very fast. Simple physics. Devastating results. Admiral Webb leaned forward. You're wondering how we kept this secret? How we maintained trade relations, diplomatic contact, and commercial ventures while building a military that could challenge established powers. He smiled, and it was not a kind smile. We're human. Deception is in our nature. We created shell companies, fake civilian projects, public programs with secret military applications. We recruited scientists and engineers from every nation on Earth and gave them unlimited budgets. We built facilities in places you'd never look. Inside asteroids, under the surfaces of moons, in the depths of gas giant atmospheres, another officer spoke up. He was younger with dark skin and sharp eyes. We also studied intelligence gathering. We learned how species like yours collect information. We fed you exactly what you expected to see. Primitive ships, limited technology, weak defenses. Every piece of intelligence you gathered about us was technically accurate. It just wasn't complete. The Imperium has conquered 47 worlds, Texcal said bitterly. Civilizations far more advanced than you appeared to be. How did they fail where you succeeded? They probably didn't prepare, Admiral Webb said simply. They probably assumed the galaxy was peaceful because they were peaceful. They developed technology for exploration and commerce, not war. When you came for them, they tried to militarize too late. We never made that mistake. We've been on a war footing since the day the Tyrellians warned us. He stood, walking to a viewport that showed Earth hanging in space. We didn't want this. We're not conquerors. We don't seek to dominate other species. We just want to be left alone. 3 days after the surrender, the Zalthorn prisoners watched from detention cells aboard human vessels as their ships were processed. Human engineers swarmed over every Zalthorn craft, documenting technology, extracting data cores, removing weapon systems. The once mighty Armada was being systematically dismantled, not out of cruelty but out of practical necessity. Texcal stood at the viewport of his cell, watching the work. Commander Rachel Foster approached, her footsteps echoing in the quiet corridor. Your people are being well treated, she said without preamble. Medical care for the injured, food that meets your dietary requirements, quarters that respect your environmental needs. We're not barbarians, despite what your propaganda might have told you about humans. Why? Texcal asked, not turning from the viewport. Why treat us with such care? We came to enslave your species, to take your world, to destroy your civilization. Because that's not who we are, Foster replied. You tried to make us into victims. We refuse that role. But we won't become monsters just because you tried to make us prey. There's a difference between defending yourself and becoming what you fight against. She joined him at the viewport. Besides, you're more valuable to us alive and treated well. You're going home, Commander. All of you. Your ships, your crews, everyone. Texcal turned to stare at her in disbelief. You're releasing us? In a manner of speaking, Foster said. Your vessels will be returned to Zalthorn space. Disarmed, of course, but functional. We'll even provide escort to ensure you get home safely. However, your ships won't be empty. They'll be carrying something important. What? Evidence, Foster said simply. Documentation. Records, proof of every war crime the Zalthorn Imperium has committed. Every species you've enslaved. Every world you've conquered. Every atrocity you've perpetrated in the name of your empire. We've been watching the galaxy for 150 years, Commander. We have extensive records. Thexcal felt a chill run through his body. You're going to expose us to the Galactic Council. We already have, Foster confirmed. While you were being processed, Admiral Webb transmitted our findings to every member of the Council. Along with an ultimatum, the Zalthorn Imperium will free all enslaved species. You will pay reparations to the civilizations you've harmed. You will submit to Council oversight and regular inspections. Or you will face humanity's fleet. She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. We're not interested in conquest, Commander. We don't want your worlds or your resources. We just want you to stop being predators. The Council has been afraid to confront the Imperium before. You were too powerful, too established. But now they've seen what happened when you attacked us. They know we can back up our demands. Thexcal slumped against the wall. The Imperium will never accept those terms. The High Council will see it as humiliation. Then they'll see their fleets destroyed, Foster said matter-of-factly. We're done playing the role of potential victims. We're not interested in galactic politics or power struggles, but we will defend ourselves. And we will defend those who can't defend themselves. That's the message your return will send. Over the next week, the Zalthorn crews were returned to their ships. The vessels had been stripped of all weapon systems, their engines downgraded to basic functionality, their shields removed. But otherwise they were intact. Each ship's databanks had been filled with documentation of Imperium crimes. Video evidence, testimony from survivors, analysis of conquered worlds, a complete catalog of atrocities spanning centuries. Admiral Webb stood on the bridge of his flagship, the UHSF Sovereign, watching as the Zalthorn fleet prepared to depart. Captain Sarah Chen joined him, her small frigate undaunted having been returned to her command. Do you think they'll actually reform? Chen asked. Probably not voluntarily, Webb admitted, but the Council will force them to. They've seen what we can do. They know we're not bluffing. More importantly, every other predatory species in the galaxy just watched the Imperium's largest fleet get captured without firing an effective shot. That changes calculations. He turned to look at her. You delivered the warning well, Captain. Your calm certainty sold the deception perfectly, made them think we were arrogant rather than prepared. I just told them the truth, sir, Chen replied. They had 72 hours to leave. They didn't. Everything that happened afterward was their choice, not ours. Webb nodded. That's the message we need the galaxy to understand. We don't strike first. We don't conquer. We don't enslave. But if you come for us, you'd better be prepared for the consequences. The Zalthorn fleet began its burn out of the solar system, escorted by a dozen human warships to ensure they actually left. Thexcal sat in his command chair aboard the Eternal Conquest, watching Earth shrink in his view screens. The beautiful blue planet that should have been his greatest conquest had become the site of his greatest defeat. His communications officer spoke quietly. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the human flagship. It's being broadcast on all frequencies. They want everyone to hear it. Play it, Thexcal said wearily. Admiral Webb's image appeared on the screen. But this transmission wasn't just to the Zalthorn fleet. It was being broadcast across known space, sent to every inhabited system, every species, every government. Humanity was making a statement. This is Admiral Marcus Webb of the United Human Space Forces, he began. 3 days ago, the Zalthorn Imperium sent an invasion fleet to conquer Earth. 847 warships, the largest armada the Imperium had ever assembled. They came expecting easy victory over a primitive species. The transmission showed footage of the battle, Mars lighting up with railgun fire, human ships appearing from stealth. The Zalthorn fleet surrendering without inflicting a single human casualty. The Zalthorn were given 72 hours to depart peacefully, Webb continued. They were warned. They were given a choice. They chose to ignore that warning. This was the result. More footage played. Zalthorn ships being boarded, prisoners being processed with dignity and respect, medical care being provided to the wounded, the systematic documentation of Imperium crimes. Let this serve as a message to the galaxy, Webb said, his voice carrying absolute conviction. Humanity is not prey. We are not victims. We are not easy targets. We have spent 150 years preparing for this moment. We have developed weapons and defenses that can stand against any threat. We will defend ourselves. We will defend our allies. We will defend those who cannot defend themselves. The transmission showed images of the Tyrellians, humanity's first friends, then images of other peaceful species that the Zalthorn had conquered or threatened. We do not seek conquest, Webb stated. We do not desire empire. We simply want to exist in peace. But we will not allow predatory species to threaten that peace. The Zalthorn came to enslave us. Instead, they became an object lesson in why humans should never be underestimated. He leaned forward, his expression hardening. To any species considering hostile action against humanity or our allies, you will receive the same warning the Zalthorn received. Fair notice, time to depart, an opportunity to choose peace. But if you choose war, you will face the full might of human military power, and we promise you, it is far greater than anything you've seen in your intelligence reports. The transmission showed the human fleet, hundreds of warships, weapons platforms throughout the solar system, technologies that should not exist according to established galactic knowledge. We're not hiding anymore, Webb continued. The galaxy now knows what we're capable of. This changes the strategic balance of power. Predatory species will need to reconsider their approach. Peaceful species now have an ally who can protect them, and the Galactic Council has been reminded that power without responsibility leads to atrocity. He stood, the camera following him. The Zalthorn fleet is being returned to their space, disarmed but intact, their crews alive and well treated. They carry with them evidence of Imperium crimes and our demands for reform. The Council has been given the same evidence. We expect action. We demand justice, and we will enforce both if necessary. Admiral Webb's expression softened slightly. To those species who share our values, who believe in peace, cooperation, and mutual respect, humanity extends the hand of friendship. We wish to trade, to learn, to grow together. The Tyrellians warned us about the galaxy's dangers, and we prepared. But they also showed us its possibilities. We want to explore those possibilities with others who share our vision. The transmission neared its end, but to those who see us as potential prey, hear this clearly. We gave the Zalthorn fair warning. We will give you the same courtesy, but only once. When humans say depart or face the consequences, we mean it. We keep our promises. All of them. The screen showed one final image. Captain Sarah Chen on the bridge of the Undaunted, delivering her original warning to the Zalthorn fleet. Her calm face, her certain eyes, her clear statement about the 72-hour deadline. That warning was given, Admiral Webb concluded. It was ignored. Now the galaxy knows the cost of that ignorance. Choose wisely. Humanity prefers peace, but we are prepared for war. We will not strike first, but we will always strike last. This message ends, the transmission concluded. Across the galaxy, species watched the footage.